Hey everyone, Pugs here, back again with 2 new reviews for you guys. Today we're covering Jellyfishing and Plankton, 2 episodes that are all about introducing some real key aspects of SpongeBob SquarePants. Like last video, I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who watched, liked, and or commented on the previous couple reviews. It's really cool to see that other people actually like my rambling. I love talking about SpongeBob a lot, and so making these videos is almost like a stress reliever for me. Anyway, so I guess that's enough about me, and you're here to see me talk SpongeBob, and that's exactly what I plan to do today, so let's just get right into it. Starting off today's double feature, we've got the introduction to one of the most iconic parts of the show, jellyfishing. And one of my favorite things about SpongeBob SquarePants is the show's atmosphere, and I think that this episode is a really good example of that. And jellyfishing instead of butterfly catching, who comes up with this stuff? It's really great, and it makes the world of this show unique and full of character. And that's also why I really like the creative swears in this show. So, if I get over to Sailor Mouth, I guess you'll see it then. Anyway, speaking of atmosphere, this episode begins with a gorgeous panoramic shot of the sky into Conch Street. You might remember me mentioning this in my very first review, but now I'm glad that I'm finally at the episode where I can show this beautiful background, for real this time. SpongeBob is a show that's hardly devoid of great backgrounds and visuals, and you can see the time and effort poured into this painting and poured into making the aesthetics of this show very cohesive. And really, jellyfishing is kind of full of these gorgeous backgrounds, and I'm pretty sure you can see a lot of these paintings on the SpongeBob wiki, actually. I'll be sure to drop the link in the description like I usually do when I mention stuff like that. But yeah, I'd really recommend checking them out. They're just nice backgrounds. Moving on, I feel like this is the first episode where a sizable number of people actually dislike it. Does anyone else feel this way? From reading fellow reviewers' posts on the forum, or also just because I'm privy to SpongeBob fandom trends since 2013, I think that this is mostly because of what happens to Squidward in this episode. So I guess the big question is where do I stand on this? And personally, I think it's really funny. If at times it kind of runs the risk of being dull. So I really like this episode. It's also the first instance of one of my favorite SpongeBob gags, which is things randomly exploding. This is such a staple in the show that there's whole YouTube videos on it. I think I'll link one in the description so you can watch it. But anyway, this gag will literally never get old to me. I love when things just randomly explode in this show. It's peak comedy to me. Anyway, this episode has many iconic moments, from the random exploding of Squidward on his bike, or to the whole firmly grasp it thing. So for some people, this episode is a classic. And this episode is another really great example of the Squidward, SpongeBob, and Patrick dynamic, and it's kind of the first time we see them all interacting in a not strictly neighborly capacity. Bubbles Stand was a bit more of them as neighbors because they were all on Conch Street. And I guess a significant portion of this episode takes place on Conch Street, but they're in Jellyfish Fields for a good part of it too. And anyway, I think their whole dynamic in this episode is really funny. Even though poor Squidward is basically being tortured, if you want to call it that, there's something heartwarming about Patrick, and especially SpongeBob, trying to share one of their favorite hobbies with him. Neither Patrick or, more importantly, as I've discussed before, SpongeBob are being malicious here, which I think makes the torture, like I said, if you want to call it that, much easier to watch. They're trying to do something nice for poor Squidward. They're just not really good at it, and it makes it really funny. And the torture, quote unquote, really isn't all that gratuitous, which is the kind of complaint that's characteristic of much later episodes. If you know the whole Squidward torture porn thing. Yeah, all of that, which, hopefully I'll get to that at some point one day. But anyway, jellyfishing isn't really an episode I find myself rewatching too often, but it's also not an episode that I skip if I do a season 1 rewatch. So, I think I'm just going to put it in the great tier because, many of these last few episodes, it doesn't have, the wow factor that pushes it up to the next level. And I actually find the strongest part of this episode to be the beginning. And then, while it continues to be really funny after Squidward's, initially injured, I enjoy it more passively than actively, if that makes any sense. I'm not going to explain because I don't know how to. But anyway, while I'm not a Squidward torture, quote-unquote, hater, having such a long portion of the episode be devoted to that can be a little draining, even if it isn't gratuitous or even that hard to watch. Like any joke, there's a danger in it becoming repetitive, and the writers mostly avoided this by using different forms of quote-unquote torture, but I have to admit it does get a little dull for me on some rewatches. So this episode is in my great tier, and it comes in with a score of 8.4 out of 10. Next up, we've got Plankton, and this is how you do a character introduction. I mean, every character introduction in SpongeBob at this point has been excellent, but like Plankton does it with style. And before I get started, appreciation for the title card music called Chill Out, and the track that plays when Plankton first talks to SpongeBob, which is called Haunted Surf. I'm going to link both of those in the description. I just really like those tracks. I like a lot of tracks in SpongeBob. I really like the more Hawaiian music tracks, but like these surf rock ones are good as well. I don't know, maybe at some point I'll like post like my favorite tracks on underneath episodes. I don't know, I just have a lot of favorites. I have a whole playlist of them. Anyway, while we're talking about this, I kind of want to address an opinion I've seen floating around for a while about how the show should have kept the surf rock vibe it had going on in season 1. Like, maybe if you remember the episode Culture Shock, that's a really good example. But anyway, while I do definitely like the vibes, I think the show grew out of that and is perhaps better for it. Or like, let me put it this way. I like the show SpongeBob SquarePants became after season 1, when it largely abandoned this vibe. And so I don't think that some of the highs the show would reach later on would still happen if this vibe had stayed. And I associate this surf rock vibe with like the overall slowness of season 1, probably because of Culture Shock and that first scene. But anyway, and while I like the slowness of season 1, I think that SpongeBob SquarePants is even better as the fast-paced show that we're more familiar with. So that's why I disagree that the show should have kept this vibe. And that was a lot of words, and I hope that they made sense to people. I gotta say, I do still love these surf rock tracks though, but anyway, so this episode introduces us to the villain we all know and love, Plankton. He's so deliciously like melodramatic in this episode, and this episode kind of tells us all we need to know about his ego, his motivations, his college education. And rewatching season 1 is so fun because we get to see the origins of all of these iconic parts of SpongeBob. I mean, like, imagine this show without these like Plankton plots. Like, they're just something like so integral to the show that it's unimaginable, at least for me. And Plankton plots aren't even like my favorite part of SpongeBob SquarePants, like, at all. So that says a lot to me. And also, since I can't stay on one topic for the life of me, I wanted to say, like, one thing about season 1 that I really like is, like, the simplicity of some of these episode titles. I mean, like, just think of, like, 5 of the last 7 episodes that I've just reviewed. So we got Reef Blower, Bubble Stand, Ripped Pants, Jellyfishing, and now Plankton. Like, they all just describe the main part of the episode. And, like, or the main plot, I guess. And, like, it's so simple and yet so good. I will always love like a punny and clever title, but like these are just as good. Anyway, back to like the actual episode review. Plankton is a hilarious and very atmospheric episode. Atmospheric because it largely takes place at night, giving us some new insights into the environment of Bikini Bottom, complete with some gorgeous backgrounds as per usual. And then I consider this episode hilarious because, well, it's just really funny. Every joke in this episode lands and lands hard. And there's something inherently hilarious in like Plankton's character design, being such like a grandiose speaking guy who's smaller than everyone else in the show is just funny. And obviously that was done on purpose, but I'm gonna just say they did well. And like so many of these season 1 episodes, Plankton has a lot of like iconic moments from like I went to college, from this is my lab and this is my laboratory. And, like, don't even get me started on Shut Your Mouth, you mediocre clarinet player. Like, that scene never fails to get me rolling. Like, the voice acting in that is just so good. Like, Mr. Lawrence and Roger Bumpus knew exactly what they were doing there. Real talk, actually, sometimes I feel like the VAs, like the voice actors, are underrated. Or, like, there's, like, a lack of acknowledgement of their superior performance. And I mean, like, I know you're about to be like, Pugs, what are you talking about? People talk about this every day. But, like, that's not what I mean. Okay, like, we say their voices are perfect, which is true. They're perfect for these characters. But, like, we don't really talk about like the sheer talent and like well-earned ability these people have, like in their inflections, screams, emoting, etc. Like they are really good voice actors, not just like for the characters, but they're good voice actors, period. And I just think that should be acknowledged more. Anyway, this episode introduces Plankton so well, I think, because it shows us everything we need to know about his character. Like, he's a megalomaniac, he's compensating, he wants the Krabby Patty secret formula, he's both menacing and silly, he's an evil genius, and he's dramatic. And that's really, really impressive for an 11-minute episode. So, Plankton definitely earns its spot in my amazing tier because it's funny, and it does an excellent job at introducing our first real villain of the show. So, amazing tier, and I'm gonna have it come in at a score of 9 out of 10. Well, those are my thoughts on these 2 episodes of SpongeBob SquarePants Season 1. I keep saying this, but it's true. I just love how Season 1 continues to really establish this show, introducing us to all these things that years and years later we're considering to be fundamental aspects of SpongeBob SquarePants, and it's really neat to see their origins like this. So moving on to talking about things a little more broadly, you all may have noticed that I tried to add pictures a little differently this time. I'm not sure if I'll keep doing it like this or not. It really just depends on how lazy I feel. I'm a very lazy person sometimes. No, I shouldn't say that. I'm not lazy. I just have a lot going on. And so I can't put all the effort into making videos, okay? Anyway, it was just kind of annoying that iMovie kept cropping the episode pictures like that. So I just decided to do it like this. You could see the whole picture. Anyway, so I also worked a bit harder this time to differentiate my video review from my typed up review. Not because I put that much stock into having the 2 be completely different, but like I said last video, like these older reviews are much shorter than like my norm now, which means I'm used to saying a lot more than what I did a few months ago, so I kind of just like add all this extra stuff to these recorded reviews, and they make it kind of even to like the reviews I'm writing now. Which, by the way, I'm almost done with Season 3! I can't believe I'm about to hit Season 4. Things are gonna get a lot harder, because I try to do them like month by month, and I know that like with every season it's gonna be more and more episode segments until I hit like Season 9 or 10. But yeah, oh well. This is what I decided to do, I guess. Yeah. So I think that's about it for me. Thank you for watching my review, and I'll see you guys next time.